planting of 2 sprigs of lilac in a glass container. I know I've done lilac before, but not in a container. So often it's the order you do things in that makes the job easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a starting point of the twiggy bit of the stem going into the container. Not drawing the container. There's a sprig behind going into the water, and then there's a mess of twigs and branches there. So that gives me my starting point. Now there are a lot of green bits. Let's get myself a few little leaves there, and there's a little stem with lots of buds on. There's not very much open actually on this on these sprigs. I'm going to come down here and get my little stem bit which comes back to that twig, and then there's another sprig that goes something like that, and you've got lots of little sprigs coming off. The temptation is to start with the container, but as it's glass and water is transparent like glass, that's going to make life a bit difficult when you come to putting things in. Now this is a rose colour, it's a Sennelier rose colour, a little bit of ultramarine. It's a very dodgy colour, this lilac. It can sometimes be a bit bluer, sometimes a bit pinker. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the end with the buds. And I'm going to put a lot of buds. And they get bigger as they come down the stem. And the actual flower, when it's open, has 4 little petals. Rinse the brush off. And just soften that out. Add a bit of variation there. Now this brush has got a pointy end to it, so let's try a different brush that's got a more round end. Not that one either. There we go. And they are in little clumps. It's like when I do trees, a lot of you will have done some of my tree paintings. I tend to do the foliage and then join it up, because that's really the only way to go about it. And this is the same. Got these little clusters. And then I can, now there's a whole mass of stuff here, which is really just very merging together. It's very difficult to get that all separated out unless you want to go into botanical art detail. Now you might just want to loosen up a little bit more, and this is rather fun because what's happening here is that you will find, depending on your paints, that there is some colour separation. Some of these marks will come out very interesting, more blue, and some more pink as the pigments separate. And when that big mass there has dried out, you can go over the top with some more detail. Right, I just want to get the vase in, using a little bit of Payne's grey. It's just a little glass actually. And what's happening is it's round like that. The sprig is leaning on the edge of the glass. See how pale that is? And imagine it goes about there. And there is a thick-ish bottom. And of course there will be also the surface of the water. I'm not particularly too worried about any colour bleeding. As I say, this is a very quick little loose painting. Right, let's just take some of that out, because that in its turn also gives you shapes. I'm going to let that dry off and then come back to it. Well, that's dried off nicely, so let's just finish this little beauty off. We've got some nice marks, interesting marks. If you want to play with your paints more, it's really beneficial. Trust me, just have a bit of fun. Right, see how those colours have separated. Let's go in now and do a few more shapes. We can accentuate some of these, and you can pop a little white in the middle if you wish. I'm going to make this colour stronger, a little less water, a little more paint please. Now I'm going to, this is where I'm not practicing what I preach. Let's get a bit of more structure into that little glass. Bit of Payne's grey, fairly watery. And shift the perspective there, didn't get it quite right. And you get highlights on glass, okay, so you're going to get little shiny bits. And we're going to have a bit of a line down here. It's got quite a thick base, this glass, so we'll have a bit of dark chunk there. And we've got the water. Just bring a bit of that down, just let it all do its own thing. It's the best thing to do. That perspective isn't quite right, so I'm just pushing that rim up. Now I'm coming back to the raw umber for a bit more on these stems. And going where the water hasn't gone, but again, I'm not that bothered about bleeds because, you know, when you've got glass, you get distortion of the object, and also especially when there's water. Let's go to the green. Let's join up some of these little clusters of buds. I wanted this to be a fairly quick little painting, but I think it might go a bit longer. Let's add a bit of more depth in colour there. And you see how I'm see where we've got those dry gaps, that's where I'm filling in where the stalks could go. And we could go a bit darker in places, and that stalk is a bit thicker because it's coming down to the woody branch bit. Oops, sorry about that. Let's take some more colour. Now you could, if you wish, employ a bit of white to give you that opaqueness, and just put some extra large petals in. It's entirely up to you. The structure of the bud is actually something like this. When you're looking at it straight on, because it's a full petal flower, that's what you see. And so from the side, it's a bit like that. But of course, what we're doing at the moment is not about that sort of detail. And the stem actually is quite purple from the flower until it gets to the green, and it changes into the green. So that's quite nice. So there we are. I think that'll do for this little exercise. I just wanted to give you something quick and cheerful. Let's just do a little bit more because I'm wanting to fiddle. Just fun to let the water and the paint just have a play. And then if you want to, because you can, and I'd like to make that even darker. I just wanted to do a happy little spring sprig to cheer you all up, and that would make a nice little painting as a gift, a nice little greeting card, whatever you want it to be. Have a little bit more the greeny colour. Let some bleed into that water there. A bit richer, a bit darker, a bit thicker. You know, fiddle with it, play with it. Just have a bit of painting fun. Very smooth the colours, very smooth the shapes. And it's just playing like this that you really learn a lot. So there you are, my friends. A little bit of lilac on this lovely, lovely spring day. And sometimes it's just the tiniest touch that can make the difference. So I hope you enjoy that. Have a go, have a play, mess around, and whatever you do, keep safe and keep painting.